So this video is focusing on the law of sines. So if you forgot what the law of sines is, I'm just going to write it up here in the top corner. Okay. Sine of a given angle over its side is proportionate to all the other angles and sides. So sine of b over little b equals sine of c over little c. Okay, so that's the general form of law of sines. You can have it flipped and it still will work. I don't want to try and stretch it too much, so I'm going to show a couple of examples where we find the angle, and then I'm going to show you a couple of examples where we find the side. So this is probably one of those formulas that could show up on the ACT, and more than once too. This is just helpful for you to know. This is not like the most important thing ever. I mean, there's so many things that are technically important. This is just to help you be familiar with this type of mathematics. If you do decide to move to a higher level of mathematics, or you do need some trigonometry in your field. So, for this first problem, we need to find the measure of angle B. Now, before I find any measures of any angles, one thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to make sure that I know what my proportions are. So I'm going to look to see, is there an angle and a side opposite it where that information can help me set up a proportion. So I'm going to use pink here. I'm going to label my sides super quick. Here's little a, here's little b. And how do I know that that's little a? Because here's angle A, and it's always going to be opposite that angle. Angle B is there, so little b is there, so this must be little c. I'm going to switch to a different color. Okay, so angle C and little c, these two are connected. That will help create a proportion. And I can use that proportion when I'm doing the law of sines. So that's very, very helpful. So I'm going to set that up super fast. So I've got sine of 99 degrees over 21 kilometers. Okay, that's not bad. I'm going to switch to a different color really quickly. Now, let's find another proportion. I know I have side little b. Hey, and that's the angle I'm looking for. I'm looking for the measure of angle B. So, these two right here correspond as well. However, when I set this particular proportion up, since I don't know my angle, I'm going to have to leave that all by itself and put 10 in the denominator. So 10 kilometers. Okay, a reminder to you that I am trying to find the measure of angle B. So somehow, some way, I'm going to need to get that angle measure all by itself. All right, so now that we have this proportion, we know what we're looking for, let's find out how we can get this angle measure all by itself. So I'm going to just grab a new color really quickly. Okay, now I know that the first thing I'm going to want to do is eliminate my denominator here. That way the sine of B is by itself. So before I do anything else, I'm going to multiply by 10. Now at this point, you can actually type all of this right here into your calculator, scientific or graphing, whatever kind of calculator you have, and then just use the entire decimal. That's going to come in handy, I promise. But since I'm going to type everything, me personally, I'm going to type everything in all together because I have that capability with my calculator. If you feel like you can't do that with yours, then feel free to type all of this in and get a decimal. I'm going to move in this direction. I actually just realized I don't need this kilometers here. The units are going to go away. And then I'm left with, sine of B. Okay, so I am so close to having that angle all by itself. Now, I have sine of B isolated, but I don't have B completely isolated. Not yet, at least. So let me think for a second. How can I get that angle all by itself? Well, how do I get rid of a trig function? Oh wait, inverse trig functions. So kind of like this step right here where division and multiplication become inverses of operations of each other. The inverse trig function is going to help me get B by itself. So I'm going to take the inverse of this side, but I must also take the inverse of the other side. Okay, so when I do that, all this cancels out. I'm left with B. Then I have this inverse sine of 10 times the sine of 99 degrees divided by 21. Now, like I said earlier, if you want to type all of this information right here, let me circle it. If you want to type all of this into your calculator before you take the inverse sine, you totally can. The problem is that you do want the entire decimal. So for me, because in my calculator, I actually can see all the information as I type it in, it's actually easier for me to type it in once I get to this point, rather than do a lot of extra work. But that's just for me. Do what's best for you. Okay, I'm going to write my answer right over here. So I'm going to type this whole thing in really, really quickly. I have the inverse sine of 10 times the sine of 99 degrees. I just realized that I forgot a set of parentheses here. 10 times the sine of 99 degrees, all divided by 21. And the angle measure that I'm getting, and I'm going to round to one decimal place just to make it a little bit more concise here. I have 28.1 degrees when I round. So that would be my answer for that first problem. So for the second problem, it says that it wants me to find the measure of angle A. So I'm going to start this very similarly to the last problem, where I'm going to just quickly make sure that I have all my sides labeled. Here's angle A, this is little a, angle B, this is little b, over here is little c. So first things first, I'm going to want to see where my proportions are. Well, I have angle B there, I have little b there. I can definitely set that up. So sine of 105 degrees divided by 39 kilometers. I also know, and let's see if I can get a different color for this. Oh, there we go. That I have a little a, but I'm looking for the measure of angle A. So these two values are going to also be paired together to create a proportion. So sine of A divided by 27. Now I'm going to do the long way on this one so you can kind of see what I mean by you're going to need to use the entire decimal. So this is a second example, but I'm going to do things just a tiny bit differently. All right, so first things first, I'm going to box the part that I'm going to calculate right away. So sine of 105 divided by 39. I'm actually going to type that into my calculator first. Believe it or not, this is the decimal that I'm getting when I type that in. 0.02476732888 equals sine of A over 27. this is what I mean by you're going to need to use the entire decimal. It's going to make it very inaccurate if you round to like 0.025. You're not going to get the right value. So use the entire decimal until the very, very, very end. Then you can worry about rounding. So next thing I'm going to do, I need to get A by itself. Okay, that's my goal here. So let's multiply both sides by 27. Okay, giving me sine of A all by itself. And I should still have this decimal in my calculator right now. I'm just going to now multiply it by 27. Okay, so when I do that, here's the decimal that I end up with. I end up with 0.668717897. Oh gosh. Now, this gets kind of tricky. So let me explain what's about to happen. I'm going to switch to a different color. Once again, I need to get A all by itself. So I'm going to take the inverse sine because it will cancel out my trig function there. And I must do it to this side right here. Okay, let me start with the right-hand side because I think that's the easiest. Cancels out. I'm left with A. On the left-hand side, you can either type this entire thing into your calculator, or this is the pre-recorded answer. When you type this into your calculator, I'm going to just quickly write this right here. When you type it into your calculator, you can do second sine, and then do second answer. Okay? When you type it into your calculator, this is probably the easiest way of doing it. Or you can type this entire thing, and I will box it so you can see what I'm talking about. You can type this entire thing right here, right how you've written it. Whatever works better. I usually do this one right here just because it is a little bit simpler. Sometimes simpler is the way to go. So that's what I'm going to do when I type this into my calculator. So I'm going to do inverse sine of my decimal. And then like last time up here where I rounded to 1 decimal place, I'm also going to round to 1 decimal place here. And I end up with approximately 42 degrees because I have high numbers and I round to the nearest degree when I round. So A is about 42 degrees. It's not exactly 42, but it's about 42 degrees. Stay tuned for the next example. The next example is going to be with side lengths. Woohoo!